Hello. I have not even finished my first Flustercuck and I'm already thinking about my second. So what I've done is I've taken the platter off of this, and here is the motor, and the mechanism is all this little tiny bit. And the speaker is part of the tone arm, I guess you'd call it, on this product made by Sears or Montgomery Wards or something like that. Silvertone, whoever owned that. So at some point in the near future, this is going to sit on its base and play the record that's going to be placed on the platter, which is right here. And so right now I'm starting at the top and working my way down. And that's not normally how you build a building. And this is sort of going to end up looking like a tower. But I have to figure out how this is going to connect. So my carefully drawn blueprints, as you see here, are not carefully drawn, but if I did it carefully, then it wouldn't be fun, would it? So my plan now is to make it actually at the apex. Here's the machine, here's the base, and it's going to be about 4 feet off the ground, I guess, the top of this. So you can look down as you play it. And the speaker, this is meant to be on a suitcase, you know, at the park, on the picnic grounds below you, you know, below your ear level, your ear by 2.5 feet or so. So this will be about, this is for people that are standing up. So it'll be about at 4 feet, more or less. So my plan is to create something. Where did my pen go? There. My plan is to build this sort of X-shaped tripod. Now, yes, it would be much, much easier with Erector sets to build it to have 4 legs, but I'm not going to do that. It's going to be 3. And the center area here, where all of these things crisscross, was the hard part, because these angled bars don't really work very well with 3, because it doesn't work. It might work better with these, because they're, first of all, they're smaller, and I'm able to, when they're connected, I can bind them with wire, picture wire at the center, and then they can splay out at the top and the bottom. And in the center right there, I decided I'm going to use one of the Erector set boilers. This is what you'd use if you were making a boiler or a locomotive or a smokestack. And so this, you'll hold this like this as you crank it, and the crank is going to be over here. So it'll actually provide 2 purposes. I know it's not very pretty, but I don't care about that. None of it's going to be pretty. And then these things, there'll be 3 of these coming out of the top, well, 3 off the top and 3 off the bottom, and they'll be bolted together. But these are somewhat flexible, so they can splay a little bit. And then they'll be connected to these that don't bend. God damn it, further down. My phone says low battery, and who knows what it's doing to this video. It just, how difficult is it? So that's the plan. Now, the other thing I'm planning on doing is on the base, as you can see maybe here on this blueprint. See these circles? Well, the legs will contain out of the leg will come this wire, this axle. These are for wheels. on your Erector set. Out of the various legs at various points will come this bent rod, and records will be able to sit on it like this. And this will be the next one that I play. I'll just take it off the thing. And to make them so they don't flop around so much, I have some discs. Where are they? Hold on. Discs like this that will be bolted on here. So when this slides on it, it's not going to flop around as much as it's doing right now, because I'll be able to bolt it so that it won't. Isn't that clever? And then to decorate this and to strengthen it, there'll be plates like this that will be bolted down, and I'm going to use black, red, and silver. This is all going to be in tones of black, red, and silver. This is burgundy, which is close enough to red. And that's how this is going to work. So this is Flustercuck number 2. It'll look sort of like a wonky radio mast tower, Eiffel Tower, Flustercuck kind of thing. And where did the important part go? It's right here. The 3 top pieces will be bolted here and then go down to this thing. So it'll be about maybe like here below, and then it'll splay out for the base. So there you go. Check back with me later, and we'll see how far I get. Okay, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about erector dysfunction. One of the reasons that I hated this toy as a youth was, as I had mentioned in an earlier video, that the little sharp points on these little nuts and bolts were damaging to my tender fingers. And the other thing is the nuts and bolts, when you are you tighten them, and their half-life for staying tightened is about 43 seconds, because they just untighten, and you're working on your swing set, and by the time you get to the second swing, the base has already fallen apart because it doesn't hold together. And of course it's meant to do that so that you can easily build the tractor when you're done with the Ferris wheel, and when you're done with the tractor, you can build the H-bomb or whatever it is that you're building with these things. So, but anyway, one of the things that I'm doing is, one of the reasons that I like Erector sets now is I've learned that I don't have to follow the rules. I don't have to make a tractor. I don't have to make a Ferris wheel. You know, Ferris wheels, even when they're big and at the Chicago World's Fair, they're not very interesting. Building something to a plan is never interesting to me. To use an Erector set to make a collage, a sculptural collage that doesn't look like anything, is much more exciting than making a tractor. So What I'm doing here, though, because I've got this motor, the 3 screws that held this to the base are not built to Erector set specifications. A plate like this, the holes weren't in the right spot, and I'd have to drill them. And I don't want to do that. So what I'm doing instead is I'm using these various Erector set parts, and where they sort of aim toward the middle, I'm just going to lash these together with wire, picture hanging wire. And I should have used a bigger piece, but this is be just fine. So what I'm doing, and I'll lash this better with pliers. I'll just get it ready for that. And that will keep these things from moving out. Because the next thing I have to do is build, what I'm doing is building the, where's my blueprint? I'm building this top part, which has the engine for the Victrola. Ignore that. I meant to cross that out. I did cross it out. Anyway, I'm building the motor and the turntable mount. I'm building the thing that will go from the motor to the handle. And this is the handle. This is the thing you hold while you crank it. And then below this will be the legs. So this is going to be here, tightened, and then have it set down, and then these 3 things here, okay, and I'm just using a wire. Where did my wire go? I'm using a wire to hold this vaguely together just so I can build the rest of it. Okay, can you... So these will all be eventually bolted together and bolted to the legs, the 3 legs that are going to be coming out of the bottom. See? And then below that will be below this. These will disappear into this and come out as 3 legs at the bottom. And what you don't need to see in the meat grinder here is how awful it's going to look, because it probably will look pretty awful. So what I've done on each of these legs, to make sure that, hold on, where's my platter? Nothing is hitting. You hear that little scraping of the wire that is sticking up, but that's going to be cut down so it won't make that noise. So each of these things has 3 more things coming down, and they are going to connect to each other in some way, maybe using these little Y things like this, just for strength and for decoration. Strength through decoration. It sounds like something that Goebbels, no, his was strength through joy. Well, we have strength through decoration. And one of the things that I'm doing here is I did buy myself at the hardware store some Loctite. It's like super glue you use for nuts and bolts. And what that will do is will keep these things from unscrewing, because when you if you can't build something with an Erector set with a half-life of whatever, 43 seconds, this thing is going to fall apart before the first song is done playing. So I'm going to essentially super glue all of these very tight, and it will never come apart, but I don't care. the world is coming to an end. This does not have to come apart to make someone else's child happy, right? Isn't that right? That's right, Pierre. So some of these things I may just leave as is. They may turn into something else later. I just haven't figured that out yet. Maybe they can come up like this and have a flagpole on them. Who knows what I'm going to do with all of them, but these three, oh shoot, I should be, well, that's okay. It doesn't make any difference. I'll figure it out. See, if I plan too much, then I don't have any fun. I just fill it in. It's like a coloring book, you know. How fun is that? So if you create and design while you're doing it, you don't really have a plan. At the end, it will look like you don't have a plan, but you would have fun while you were doing it. Doesn't that make sense? It does make sense whether you believe it or not. Okay? So there we go. And it's strong enough. I mean, it's going to wiggle like this. I don't care about that. It's going to stay level, and it's not going to fall apart because, well, I'm just telling you, it won't fall apart. Bye. Well, I am continuing with my Erector Dysfunction video here. I'm using, now where did it go? I'm using some of this thread locker, which is supposed to keep these screws tight. Now, this is a nut, and the nuts in Erector sets are tiny, and I would like to say that they're impotent. They're essentially impotent nuts, which is what I'm having to deal with here in my Erector Dysfunction thing. So I've had to resort to using hose clamps, hose clampification right there, and also right here. This will be removed now that it's been tightened further than it's supposed to by quite a bit. So what I'm doing is this is the top, and then it will gather here, and this will sheath the legs as they're going in and then splaying out to be the bottom of the tripod. The tripod is now going up. It's on its back. From here, from the center of this thing to the top, I'm building the thing with these little girders here, whatever these are, with the multi-hold things. From here downward for the legs, they will be with the L-shaped girders here for added strength. And between these and the other legs will be other girders like this, and perhaps some of these ones here. And then in addition, according to my blueprint, where did it go? Well, as you know, I don't refer to my blueprint once I start doing this. It's all by whim more than anything else. I will have plates like this that will be sort of placed hither and to and fro, hither and yon, and then occasionally some of these discs will be sticking out with a little rod sticking out of that I can hang my records on. So what I'm doing right now is going to be to tighten this up, attach the three base top of the legs. The bottom of the legs are that way, will be that way, and once they're built and attached, then I will slide the sheath over the whole thing and then attach a couple of bolts to this end. What I will have to do when I'm all done is to unscrew the top 3 screws that holds onto the motor, and I will then rescrew it and add the thread locker, the nut tightener, and then I'll be fine. One of the things about these little nuts, they are just one molecule different from a washer. There's just one tiny little thread that goes around, enough to make it, in fact, classified as a nut. The Erector set people were cheap in their nut building. Normally a nut will have, you know, a thread that goes around 2 or 3, 4 times, 5 times to add for extra strength, I guess, is what it does. A nut and a screw is a simple machine, and it's a wedge, believe it or not. It's a wedge that makes it work, if I'm remembering my simple machines correctly. I've been noticing I first put the nut on the end of a screw before I make sure that it works, because every once in a while they don't seem to want to work. But anyway, so here we are. We've got, what I'm going to do now is to try to eyeball, try to make this as level as I can, and maybe add a couple of bolts here to keep this from sliding back and forth doing this. And then once that's done, I will essentially cement with this glue the nuts and the screws, the bolts, so that they will work. And according to the directions, I have to let these things dry overnight, cure overnight. But anyway, we'll see if it works. Again, I'm not building a rocket to go to the moon. I'm building a Victrola stand, Flustercuck. If I did work for NASA, they would never have gotten to the moon. They would never have gotten to Houston from Cape Canaveral. They would never have gotten off the ground, is actually probably what would happen. So what I'm doing is I'm unscrewing these now, and I'm going to try to do the best I can to mark this so I can get it so it's relatively straight up and down. And then, so again, this, what I'm trying to do is figure out how far in these go to make that level. And of course it's going to sway like this. That's part of the fun. And hopefully it won't, in its swaying, poke someone's eyes out. The center of gravity here is not going to be this, is sort of a weird thing, because the most amount of pressure that's going to happen once this thing is put together is where I screw where I turn the crank. And the crank is, I'm going to be applying a lot of pressure here as I crank it. So I may have to counterbalance, add a cinder block to the other end to balance it off, but I'll deal with that later. I'm too impatient. That's another thing that would not have worked with NASA and me. Why do we need to test? Why do we need to put a dog in space? Let's just do it. No, that guy looks good enough. What do you mean you have to train the astronaut? Fuck that. Let's just go. I choose to go to the moon. Would not have taken a decade. It would have taken an hour and a half. Well, a week. It would have taken a week if I was in charge of NASA. Of course, there'd be thousands of dead people by the time I got it right, but they're just people. Okay, there we go. See how far I got? Soon I'll have more. Well, I've learned something. I cannot start from the top and build down. I need to start from the bottom and build up. So what I did was, there has to be a point in this flustercuck of regularity to have a strong base. So, yeah, we need a strong base. My base is really strong. What I've done is I've attached 3 of these equal-sized pieces of Erector set girder to the bottom of this cylinder, equidistant apart. And I have shorn them up with 3 equal parts here that go from the 8th hole up to the 9th hole, 8th hole to the 9th hole, etc. And I'm having the points, the threaded ends sticking out, so that when it's very difficult to get my little fingers inside of these nooks and crannies, and I also could, if need be, which I will be needing to do, add more things to go up. So this is the center of the piece. The legs are below it, and the head is on top of it. And this is the thorax or something, I don't know, parts of a bug. So I'm going to be building it sort of like Tinker Toy Ikebana, which I've done in the past. I will, when this is, I'm going to make another, well, I probably won't make another layer. I'll just make sure this is very tight and equidistant, and I will then put into the vase, the top of the vase, all of this stuff and cram it down, and then as carefully as I can, I'm going to try to level it off by connecting girders like this to different elements. So this may not be as if I cram it in like this right now, all of the things come out the bottom, and if I push it down even further, you'll see them coming out the bottom even further. But I may choose, instead of doing that, actually this is not too bad the way it's sitting right now. It's relatively level up there, but what I'm going to do is shove this down further and then strap and screw these small bits to the cylinder at this point, and also have some coming all the way down to here. And there'll be sort of a hodgepodge of various types of girdering. I have already gone and used a Meccano, not an Erector set piece for this. These are from a Meccano. So I've already polluted the purity of this design, but that's fine. I don't care. I like motley things. So there we are. It looks like it could take off. But it won't take off yet. So there it is. I will now put some fuel in my stomach and wash my hands and see what I can eat. Always make sure your working space is completely empty. Yeah, right. Well, there is the base. And it could go down again, maybe another 6 inches or so, if I feel it needs to be broader at the base. We move our way up, and then we see the neck, and then there's the head. Now, right now, this is just a disaster waiting to happen, but I have to figure out a way to make this sturdy so it doesn't shake when I'm cranking it. If it shakes a little bit while it's playing, that's fine, though I don't think it's going to do that. And down here, this little shelf is for records, and that will also add weight to the base of it so it won't tip over. And then these things on the side here are where I can hang a record when I'm done. And I've got 3 of them, 1 on each leg. So now it's just to shore up all of this business, keeping the platter level. And once I do that, then I can add the tone arm and the speed control thing, which I really don't need, because I can just move it without knowing where it will go. I know what it's supposed to sound like. So it's just adding, screwing things here, and screwing them to that, and screwing that to this. This will look like a spider web up here, and then it looks like a different kind of spider web down there. But if I stand up, this is about, it could be, well, this is about the right height. So if I add anything more on the bottom, I may just add a horizontal bar going out, and maybe it'll help. I can step on it like this and as I crank it. So, but there's going to be a lot of force happening up here, so that's where I have to make it stronger. Stronger. Ta-da! I did it. I have to wind it up. Winding it up is not a pretty sight. It torques and twists. It's like a snake in your arms. But I'll figure out how to make it wind more easily than it does. But it's pretty cool. N'est-ce pas? So here is the Erector Dysfunction, all constructed and in fact functional. Erector functional. So starting at the base, we have the records, and when I'm done playing the records, they can go into the played shelf. So in the records, as I'm playing and being the DJ, I'll be selecting the second record as the first one is playing, and I can put the second record on its little holder here. Or on the other side, I've got 3 of these discs that each can hold a record or 2. Then as we go further up, we see the needle compartment. So right, the needles go in there, and the legs end here, and then the head is on top, and it's a flustercuck of stuff, but all of it is, it's not at all, there's nothing decorative about any of this. It's all required and necessary. Here is the repair kit. So there's a wrench screwdriver combo, and I need 2 of them because I can't tighten a nut with the tightener of the nut and screw it at the same time, so I need both. And there's some 4 or 5 nuts left over there. And the speed control is here, and the crank is there, and the machine that makes the sound is here. The only thing that's missing is the brake, which I will figure out where it will go. It needs to be placed somewhere here where I can lock the turntable. So there it is. So let's play a song, Cab Calloway, and I'm using my stomach to guide the thing onto the, come on, get in there. I'm in my hallway, so there's an echo. Come on, there it is, there's the center. So here you go. I don't know, I think it's wound up enough. I guess it isn't. It isn't wound up enough. And it's hard to wind up when you're holding the phone. This is soft, loud. It's sometimes better to turn on the Victrola and walk into another room and listen to it. Somehow the space between the machine and your ear helps deaden the shrillness of them. Pretty cool.